All right, we are live. It's the Chicago Brain Buddies. It's me, Aaron Freeman, and Peggy. Hi, Peggy.
Hi.
Oh,
This is fun. This is an experiment. We're trying live for the very first time.
it's true. It's true. We'll see if anybody picks up. There's no one watching now, but so
There
we're
is
just
no one watching now.
there's no one watching now, but we'll put our names up anyway. So, all right. So we are recording. So anyone who misses it
So
now,
we're going to talk about the Olympics. We're going to
yes.
talk about ice skating in particular, because what's better to watch than ice skating? It's so well. There are other things. I like curling too. Every 4 years, I like curling. But okay. Seriously, love curling. You remember, I am married to a Canadian.
I understand. Okay, all right, fine. All right.
You don't like curling?
I don't even understand curling. The curling, I know.
Understanding it has nothing to do with it. Look at all the oomph that they put into their.
I know there's a broom involved.
There is a lot of brooming.
That's all right. But
broom into a verb. Okay. Curling aside, let's go back to ice skating. So one of the most interesting things about ice skaters is that they twirl at an incredible rate. Okay. And one of the things that you have to think about, or neurobiologist thinks about, is how do they not fall down because they're so bloody dizzy? Okay, so I want to demonstrate something to you. There's something that
yeah, I know you wanted to do this. You've been waiting for this.
Yeah, I've been wanting to do this. I do this with my students in almost every class, and it's really fun. Okay, and you can do this at home as long as you have a swivel chair. You can do this. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to watch me. I'm going to twirl myself, about 5 times as fast as I can, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to look at you, and you're going to see my eyes go.
Oh, okay. That's fine.
This is called post-rotatory nystagmus. Okay, this is good fun.
Okay,
right, here we go. Okay, now.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I see that. Wow. That's pretty cool. So why does that happen?
Okay, so why that happens is because in my inner ear, I have these inner tubes that are filled with what's called endolymph. And as I twirl, the endolymph is moving in relative motion. Okay, when I stop, it continues. My bones doesn't move, but my endolymph keeps on moving in relative motion. And that tells my brain that I'm still twirling.
Right.
And so if I'm twirling this way, my brain really wants my gaze, what I'm looking at, to stay constant so that the world doesn't jump around. So my brain is told that I'm moving in one way, and it's going to move my eyes in the other way.
Ah.
Okay. Then my eyes get to the sort of the end of my orbit, and they have to reset back. But my brain is still being told that I'm moving. So they oppose that head movement again, or that what they think is a head movement, with another eye movement, and you just go back and forth until finally the endolymph calms down.
So we're talking about fluids moving within what they call the semicircular canals.
Exactly, semicircular canals. And so there are 3 of them. They're oriented in 3 different planes, X, Y, and Z. And this is the one that goes in this direction. It's the horizontal canals. And so, okay, so now
let me make very clear, make sure I understand. We're talking about a physiological, a kind of fluid dynamical process. This is just
correct.
Fluids moving, and that's it. It's just it's the inescapable laws of motion and fluids in motion.
And then on top of that, a reflex. So that's the fluid motion is the signal that's being detected out in the periphery and the inner ear, and then that signal is going into the brain, and the brain is interpreting that without your conscious participation as a head movement. And if I move my head and I still want to look at you, let's say, if I'm here and I move my head, I have to move my eyes.
Right.
Right? That's the vestibular ocular reflex. So
Okay.
I fooled my inner ears to think that my head is moving. And it's moving my eyes so that my gaze stays constant, so that my world does not jump around. But in fact, when I just did that, when I had the nystagmus, my world was jumping around. Nothing was clear.
Now, let me say that I know a little about this. I think that because when dancers pirouette, well, we spot so that to avoid that. Are you
a dancer?
In my younger days.
Okay, so you know how to spot.
Yeah, yes.
It's so funny because when I give instructions to my classes about this, I say, you're working in teams and one of you should sit in a swivel chair and swivel a lot, and then the rest of you should watch their eyes. But make sure you don't choose a dancer. Okay?
You want to explain for people who don't know what spotting is?
Okay, so what spotting is that as I turn my body, I keep on trying to look at one spot for as long as I can. And then I whip my head around as I turn around, I whip my head around. So out of, say, 360 degrees, for maybe 2/3 of that, I'm still looking at the same place. This diminishes the effect of the post-rotatory nystagmus. It diminishes the effect of the rotation. And so they won't have either any nystagmus or they'll have very little of it. Now, go ahead.
Oh, that's not what happens in the Olympics.
So why doesn't it happen for the ice skaters? Because their twirl velocities are so much faster. They don't have time to spot. So I don't know what the numbers are, but the number of twirls in a minute is so much lower for a ballerina or a dancer than it is when you're on a little blade of ice and you can.
Oh, yeah. No, I totally understand that. What I mean to say is, since skaters can't do spotting, and since the nystagmus is a function of fluid dynamics, the immutable laws of physics, how in the world could it be that they spin around but don't throw up?
So what do? They get dizzy, and then they practice, and then they get dizzy, and then they practice some more. And through practice, through using their lovely and adorable cerebellum, we should all just always give thanks every day. Thank you, cerebellum.
That's it. What's the cerebellum, just for those who aren't paying that much attention?
Cerebellum actually means little brain. Little brain. It's a little brain at the back of it's in the hindbrain. It's inside the cranium, and it is responsible for motor coordination. And what it does for us in this can
I just say that it's responsible for motor coordination and highly responsive to practice, to repetition?
It requires practice.
Yeah.
The cerebellum doesn't do diddly squat unless you give it lots of data. It is a data hungry. It has no assumptions. It just takes in experiences, and it has a signal that says, this is what I want to do. It has a signal, this is what you just did. If they match up, cerebellum happy, keep on going. If they don't match, if what you did does not match what you intended to do, cerebellum says, hey, okay, folks, we're going to have a little time out here. We're going to fix this. And on the next iteration, it'll fix it. Or if it doesn't fix it all the way, then the following iteration. But it doesn't take many iterations before you can fix a known movement. But it also allows you to learn new movements. So it's going to allow you to learn how to twirl and to suppress the so your inner ear is sending the signal that your head is moving. But these ice skaters have learned to suppress that signal. So they don't move their eyes as much, but they are just purely through practice. They've asked their cerebellum, chill out on this input. Just give it a big minus sign.
Well, also in the article that you sent me, that they were talking about the when we lean back, there's a tendency to lean forward to compensate, and that's another instinctive reaction.
100%. Try not to catch yourself. I remember when I was trying to learn how to ride a motorcycle, which I failed at completely, not coordinated enough to do this.
You'd make a great biker chick, though. You got the hair already. You're there. You're already there.
That's another problem. You actually have to wear a helmet.
I'm not saying you have helmet hair. I'm just saying that I would believe you as a bike. But anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. So to be able to lean into something and not panic that you're about to fall over is something that you have to learn through practice. I couldn't learn that. But yes, there are lots of vestibular reflexes. Some of them involve the eyes, but some of them also involve postural muscles, and all of those are modified in dancers to tolerate attacks on balance that you and I would not tolerate.
Right. Well, I don't know if you remember Mikhail Baryshnikov when he was in his prime. He could do pirouettes that were insane, that seemed to defy the laws of nature. I seen him pirouette and then spin and turn. It was just crazy. He clearly.
You can also see that at a place such as Cirque du Soleil, where
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean they're very agile and they adopt these weird poses that you can't imagine, but they also have this ability to throw their center of gravity way off to the side and maintain it. So there's a lot of strength plus a lot of modification of these automatic reflexes.
Well, as we've talked about many times, that we see this in professional athletics all the time.
Right.
I mean, obviously, we live in Chicago. Michael Jordan was famed for seeming to defy the laws of physics. So, but again, what I think you're saying is that the reason that skaters are able to spin around and not throw up on the ice, generally speaking, has to do with the, among other things, obviously there are no isolated parts of the brain involved in specific things. That's all connected into one glorious complex mush. But that the practice to which the cerebellum is so intensely responsive, with practice, we can overcome even those immutable laws of fluid dynamics that cause us to get dizzy and cause your eyes to go funny when you spin around.
Right. So there are certain conditions where a baby will have a nystagmus at birth. So, for example, one example is in albinism. In albinism, not only can individuals not see, but the eye movements don't develop normally, and so the eyes are in not constant, but in a lot of movement. There's a lot of extraneous movements to the eyes. In conditions such as that, where the eyes are making these extraneous movements, the baby learns to suppress it. Okay, so they learn to suppress that movement. And then if you then take those individuals and you can, using a computer, you can move the visual scene with their eye, you can measure their eye movements and move the visual scene with their eye movements, then they see motion.
Really?
Okay, because they are completely suppressing the motion. They've had a childhood and an adolescence and a lifetime to learn how to do this, and they do. The brain, she be very plastic and capable. And so they suppress it, and they suppress it very effectively. And then if you undo that suppression using a computer trick, they now see the world as moving.
Wow. Wait, no, when you say they see the world,
of us. What's that?
So they see the world as moving
only if we follow their eyes.
If the computer, the simulation shows them a scene that follows the nystagmus in their eye. By the way, what's the etymology of nystagmus?
A million etiologies.
The etymology, the origin of the word.
Etymology. I don't know what the etymology is.
But so now what I like about this, and in my view, the optimistic part of this is that what dancers or what skaters are doing is kind of what we all do, which is to find ways to adjust to circumstances with which we are not comfortable, with which we were not designed or programmed or enculturated to. We have to be enculturated into new situations, new reactions all the time. And like those dancers, we're generally able to do it. We achieve, we work with our new normal.
Yeah. So I thought we should mention maybe one other thing that I think is common to most of us who watch ice skating, and also to those of us who can't bear to watch it, which is that oh no feeling that we get when this other person who we've never met and don't know, and probably don't speak the language of, falls down.
Right.
And it pierces our psyche. Yep. So go ahead.
I was just gonna say that we have even more sympathy for some athletes than others. I remember, I'm so old that I remember little tiny Nadia Comaneci. She was a little, and so because the mere fact that she was so tiny made me all the more sympathetic and all the more on her side, in her corner, rooting for her to get that gold.
Yeah. So, but I think in general, when you see anyone fall on the Olympic ice, there's a huge cringe. In fact, my spouse barely wants to watch this because it's so unpleasant to watch them fall. And so many of them fall on so many of the routines. Yeah.
Neurobiologically, what do we thought? Why in the world would I have a physical reaction to some person whose language I don't even speak falling down while performing acts that I don't comprehend?
So this falls under the very broad umbrella of empathy, which means a communication between two individuals of affect or experience. And so when I watch that person fall, it's as though I feel as though I'm falling. Not entirely, but a dialed down version of I'm falling myself.
Well,
and
similarly,
if I didn't watch them, I wouldn't have that feeling. It's a 2D image. There's nothing going on there. It has no physical effect on me, or no obvious effect on me, but in my head, I care about it because I detect that person's disappointment and their sadness, and
let me just say on the other side of that is when you see somebody do that magnificent triple axel and then nail the landing. That was me. I just did that triple axel and nailed that landing. Did you see what I did? Did you see it? So, but let me ask. So I thought, because I thought that, from what I understood, this would not be within the broad rubric of empathy, or at least it would be closer to what we would call sympathy. Because I thought
people have all sorts of different definitions of these. So and it doesn't really matter. You could define it however you want. This is a broadly used definition of empathy in the field of biology, really introduced by Franz de Waal and Stephanie Preston.
Well, the only reason I thought about it was because I would have thought, like, for example, you talk about with your mice, your rats, I should say, your rats, that they have to recognize that there's a difference between them and the trapped rat in order to help the trapped. Yes, that's right. So they have to know, because if they feel the fear of the rat in the cage, they're immobilized.
That's right.
And
they have to realize if they get that feeling, but they don't realize that it's a different individual who's trapped, then how do they act towards
Right.
that other individual? They don't. They'd be acting towards themselves. So there is a fundamental otherness that they have to grasp.
Well, that's what I mean, though. So with the Olympics, I don't in my most emotional Olympic experiences, I don't feel as if there's a difference between me and those skaters and those various athletes. I feel like their win is my win, and especially, I hate to say it, if they're wearing red, white, and blue colors. I hate to say it because it's such a cheesy nationalist thing, but I do. I root for the clothes.
I don't.
You don't really? Okay,
No,
well,
no.
your spouse is from a foreign land, so I understand.
Well, I like a lot of them. I root for good music that I like.
Even if Russians made it.
These are people.
Okay, all right.
People.
So
I don't know. They all appeal to me.
So okay, so now what is our positive takeaway from this business of of feeling the pain and triumph, the thrill of victory, the agony of defeat in watching the Olympics? What do we learn about human brains from that?
I think it is really in the spirit of the Olympics, which is to try and bring the world closer together through sport. And in fact, now we have TV contracts that allow us, even though I'm nowhere near South Korea. Here I am in Chicago, and I can feel closer to people of all different nationalities as they go and give their all towards this fun event. It's a fun event.
Well, and that is I assume, and you knew better than I, but I assume that is a fairly human thing, the ability to be able to empathize with another species, even though your rat with some training can be and helps to empathize with other rats. I'm assuming that your rats are less likely to empathize with a bird or a cockroach. Is that true? I'm just saying that.
Well, that's a subject for a different matter. That's a matter for a different day.
Okay.
But well, I don't think there's any problem with humans empathizing with other humans, particularly when you see somebody doing something.
Oh yeah.
That is human.
Well, I didn't mean to say is that I think that it's fairly with interspecies. I guess I was thinking about that. I don't particularly empathize with the chickens that we eat. I mean, the chickens in our backyard are wonderful. I love them. But the chickens the chicken that I had for lunch, I don't feel it.
Well, you never interacted with it. You, of course, you empathize with the chickens in the backyard.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. It's true.
And if you were eating one of the chickens in the backyard, that would be a different story.
And although we do like to eat eggs in front of them so they will see what we are capable of. But on that note, so this is fun. For some, we had absolutely no one watching. I don't quite understand why, although it's on the timeline. But we got this, and this is real fun. And so we'll do it again, and we'll figure out the technical stuff.
Okay, great. That was fun.
Thank you, boss. All right, see you soon.
Bye.